going on to slide number 5, which I will begin to discuss with you. Going on to slide number 5, which I will begin to discuss with you the major points of chapter 1 in your text. The structural framework of public education in the United States is quite a bit different than in the rest of the world, and I think it's something that we should be very proud of because of the access that we give the students in the United States. Rather than having some hierarchical meritocracy, all of our students have access to free public education system. That's very unique and very different than a lot of other countries. One of the things that Chapter 1 talks about, and I think you would agree with this as practicing teachers, is the importance of the support of the family in the educational realm. You know, it's interesting, in the past week, the best high schools in the United States by U.S. News and World Report have come out. And what I always find interesting is that the best high schools generally, and this is not always the case, but generally is the case, are those of higher socioeconomic neighborhoods. You know, the family that supports education, whether they're rich or poor, will have children who also value education and will take advantage of our system. Obviously, the government is a big piece of our educational program. Again, the federal government is playing a bigger role with items such as the No Child Left Behind, and certainly all the regulations that accompany various federal mandates such as special ed. You know, the church has always been a part of the educational system in the sense that literacy was always important, at least in more modern times, for the church, and has supported the role of education as a moderator of human behavior. A couple of things that I'd like to just point out to you about technological advancement. It has certainly changed the educational community, and obviously that's true as we sit here, and I'm in upstate New York and you are in South Carolina, and we are communicating and going through an educational process. I think that technology has had both its good and bad points. Obviously, it can be a huge key for helping manage the mounds of data that are being generated by our educational systems. It obviously can be a great tool in individualizing instruction and providing computer-assisted instruction, but along with that brings the distractions of cell phones, the internet, sexting, all of the things that also have accompanied technology. Going on now to number 7, we've mentioned previously about the educational goals as being the purview of the state. Keep in mind that when the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written, education was not mentioned in those documents in the sense of assigning that function to a level of government, and as a result it has become part of the state government function, and then even further become a function of local boards of education. Obviously, the federal government is extensively been involved in our educational systems, and certainly that role has grown over time. For those of you interested in the history of it, you know, it goes back to the Morrill Land Grant colleges that came out of the early 1860s, and that's where the state university systems originated. And it continues today to, the ESEA Act, which was a reaction to the Russians and Sputnik, all the way today to No Child Left Behind. There is a mention in Chapter 1 about the authority of the states to create and govern public schools. That has continued to be, it it's described in the state constitutions. And we know that the administrative arm of most state legislatures is the State Department of Education. Obviously, you have experience with that, with the state tests and so on. I'm moving on to slide number 7. Here is a graphic that that shows you the interaction of the various levels of government and governance in terms of education. You can see that state constitutions delegate function to state legislatures. Obviously, the budget functioning of state aid, the State Board of Education, which is the administrative arm of the state legislature, and the mandates which they have alliterated on in various laws and also budget items. And then obviously we have the local Board of Education, which over time has taken on the role of governance and policy making of the local educational process and system, and has some very interesting implications for education. Obviously, for those of us who have been in the field and worked directly with boards of education, we have lots of stories to tell about that. Moving on to slide number 9. Here you see the responsibilities of the Board of Education. These are elected officials whose job is to develop policy for the governance and really maps out the policy of the school district. I used to say to students that in some ways I think that this is a high civic calling, because most of the time these people are volunteers who run for election, and as a result oftentimes become the brunt of frustration for their constituencies, and it really is oftentimes appears at least to be a very, very challenging, time-consuming, and really a thankless job a lot of times. But a key in making sure that the local constituencies feel enfranchised in terms of the entire educational process, and as a result support for education flourishes when you have a good board. Keep in mind that local districts remain basically in control of the schools. You know, the state has regulatory authority, but they're not there on the day in and day out functioning of the school. And oftentimes I think that we as educational leaders have used the state regulatory authorities as something of a scapegoat for our own shortcomings by saying such things as, well, you know, this is the state making us do this. Oftentimes I'm not sure they would even know. I'm going on to slide number 10. Here's some responsibilities again of the board. Again, this policy function is huge. Policy simply is the rules and the way that the board wants the operations of the district to be administered, in the sense that it gives us the overarching vision and mission, whereas regulation that accompany policy is the administrative pieces that give the steps to carry out policy. And that's the point of the next bullet that you see, is that this is where boards get into issues with administrators, and sometimes can be accused of micromanagement, is when they begin to get their fingers into the running of the school through the rules and regulations. That's how administration works, and that is their purview. And number 11. Here you see a graphic again of the various policy influencers on a local board of education. Obviously, federal constitution laws and court decisions drive what is legal and illegal for a local board to do. You have local traditions, opinions, and educational goals that can vary from region to region. And what's interesting is how that can be very influential in the way that the board sets out their mission. Obviously, the state constitution, laws, courts' decisions, much like the federal government that we discussed earlier, also has a huge impact on the operations of a board of education and how they form and subsequently have their administration implement policy. And then obviously you have the State Department of Ed regulations, the testing, the administration of budget, etc. that will flow out of the State Department. I'm going on to the 12th slide. Again, here is a review of what the responsibilities of the board are, this policy, and I don't think I have to elaborate. That's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what the responsibility of the board is. Now on to slide 13. This now points out what is the role of the administration in this whole hierarchy, and you can see that administration is the social process of managing human, financial, and material resources towards the fulfillment of a mission. Well, this is the crux of administration, and we take a look underneath that. You will see central office. You have the idea of the superintendent as the chief advisor to the board. He or she is also the executive officer of the school district and also the educational leader. And those two roles are very much intertwined in the sense that as the education leader and primary driver of a vision and mission, it is his or her mission to advise the board to make sure that they understand the nuances of the educational process and systems. Going on to slide number 14. This is the crux of what we will be studying is about human resources administration and the goals of HR to hire, retain, develop, and motivate personnel. You've all heard me say this before, and I will say it again and again and again to you. As education leaders, I truly believe that the most important decisions we make are the people that we bring into our system, the people that we hire, because those are the people who work day to day with the students who are our primary responsibility along with their learning and safety, and we have to do an exemplary job in this function, because without it the system rots from the inside out. There's a lot of other things that the course will discuss, planning, recruitment, selection, placement, induction, evaluation, compensation, staff development, and we'll spend some time on collective negotiations, although obviously in South Carolina the relevance of that is a bit pinched, but for some of you, you may end up outside the state where you might be in a unionized environment, so it's something for you to at least understand. The next thing I would like you to do is to go and take a few minutes and watch the video by Sir Kenneth Robinson on how do schools kill creativity. And the reason that I'm asking you to watch that is in this school personnel course, see if you can find the connections. I think it's very important for us to understand that as human resource professionals, as educational leaders, the decisions that we make greatly influence a lot of the areas that Sir Kenneth Robinson will discuss. We have been subject to I think, an antiquated viewpoint of education, one that's still married to an educational model that has its roots in an industrial age where we know that this is an age of instant information and knowledge, and creativity is going to be one of the keys to a person being a success in this century. With that being said, think about the connections between the leadership you exert within your building or within your district and how you will either facilitate the conditions needed for building a school, an educational system that will nurture the skills that students need in the next century, or how you can be an impediment to that ultimate goal. One of the things that I would caution you is that as an educational leader, and I saw this a bit with the schools of the future that you built, was you had a tendency to stay inside the borders of today. As an educational leader in the future, you're going to have to surround yourself with people with the talent to look and see what the future might imply and to build schools that nurture the skills to be able to live in that type of environment. With that being said, view that video. You can connect with it on the link above, and then you should read through Chapter 1. Threaded discussions for Chapter 1 will be online. Note the times that it will be available on the calendar. You have 5 days to respond to the threaded discussions, and in order to get full credit for the threaded discussions, which are worth 10 points apiece, you need to both weigh in with your thoughts on the topic of the day with, and this is different than in the past, with a reference from a learned source. That could be textbook, video, journal article, whatever it is that you can find to support your contention. But also you need to put a APA citation at the bottom of your threaded discussion to show the source that you got it from, and then you need to react to 2 of your classmates' threaded discussion, and you do not need to cite sources for your reaction. With that, that's an overview of the course, Unit 1, Chapter 1. There is a quiz that is on the calendar. Make sure that you pay close attention to that calendar, and especially where it says more. Make sure you click on that link to go down and see the other items in the calendar. Feel free to email me. Use the chat function on Blackboard if I'm online. If you're comfortable using Skype, my Skype account is greg-geer. Feel free to contact me on Skype as well. With that, that's Chapter 1, Unit 1 and class expectations. I'll talk to you again soon.